It's time again for Positively Incorrect TV. This is your host, Scott Cluthe. Today, the leading relationships expert in the world, John Gray, is my guest. Later, more comedy, social commentary insight from Seymour Foxhole with his Black Hole Report, plus news we decided you can use on the PINN News Update with Jay Scott. His 17 books have sold over 50 million copies worldwide. They've been printed in 50 different languages. The book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, was the largest selling book of the 1990s and launched a series that has forever changed the way women and men view their relationships. Of course, I'm talking about my guest today, Dr. John Gray. John, welcome to Positively Incorrect TV.
Thank you so much.
It's great to have you here. And listeners, you know, today we're going to touch on his latest book, Venus on Fire, Mars on Ice, Hormonal Balance, the Key to Life, Love, and Energy. What is it about hormones that are so important, John?
Well, everybody's hearing about how they really control our mood. If women's hormones are out of balance, they can experience temporary amnesia and forget any good thing a man's ever done. So in the world of relationships, that's important.
Well, now, but you also talk about men and men's hormones. I mean, nobody ever talks about men's hormones. All we hear about is women's hormones, right?
It's because women's hormones are definitely more complicated. Women tend to talk about issues more. However, hormonal health for men is becoming more known. The key hormone for men tends to be testosterone. And as men get older, their testosterone levels are getting down, which makes men grumpy and irritable. And as I say in my book, Men Are From Mars, they go to their cave, but with low testosterone, they don't come out.
They never come out of that cave, right? In fact, they just look for the remote channel changer, really, pretty much. You know, when you started your work, John, and I've known you for decades, grateful to know you for all those decades, talked to you over the decades, but this research wasn't even known, was it? And so this is all really important new information to all the relationship work you do.
Well, that's correct. I made these observations 30 years ago, wrote about them 20 years ago, continue to teach about them all this time. But what's great is now with the new understandings we have through research on hormonal differences, it explains the behavioral tendencies that have often caused a tremendous frustration for both men and women. For example, when I teach men how to listen to a woman a little bit longer than you normally would, just ask a few more questions, show some attention, ask some, what happened then? Tell me more. What else? A little bit more interest actually helps her to rebuild a hormone called oxytocin. And oxytocin helps reduce women's stress. And this is important insight for a man because normally he thinks, why are we talking about this if you don't want me to solve your problem?
Well, but as you pointed out, women don't necessarily want men to solve their problem. They want to be heard and understood. And this oxytocin is the same hormone that also propels women to see service and helping others as a stress releaser. That's something men kind of probably have a hard time wrapping their mind around, right?
Well, it's also for women to understand. One of the key rebuilders of oxytocin and releasers of oxytocin to lower a woman's stress is nesting. So when a man comes home from work, he goes to resting, which rebuilds testosterone. A woman goes right into nesting, which rebuilds her oxytocin.
Wow.
However, if she doesn't have enough time, it doesn't lower her stress.
Well, we're going to get a lot more wisdom and insight from John Gray today with Women on Fire, Men on Ice on Positively Incorrect TV. Your host, Scott Cluthe. Don't go away. Welcome back. It's Positively Incorrect. Your host, Scott Cluthe, here on Phonoscope Media. It's great to have you out there watching us on 77 on ACT. My guest today is Dr. John Gray. We're talking about his latest book, Venus on Fire, Mars on Ice. John, great to have you back on the show. Now, you were talking about hormones and stress, some of the differences between the way that men and women handle stress?
Well, stress is a key factor today because when women are not handling stress well, they tend to forget the good things in the relationship and the good things the man has done. Suddenly she's looking at him like, who are you?
Right.
And when she's feeling stressed, her ability to be flexible, her ability to be forgiving, her ability to be compassionate, all these things become less. For men, when they're not coping well with stress, they tend to become exhausted,
Right.
tired, their motivation levels drop, and something has to be really a big emergency to get them to do action.
Well, and John, and we've talked about this before. That men, it's kind of a roller coaster ride, isn't it? We have to have that downtime, don't we, to come back with the testosterone we need to accomplish things and be Superman?
Well, that's the key for women to understand about men, and this is so significant. Men and women both need testosterone. Testosterone makes us desire romance, it makes us desire sex, also gives us energy, but it's a bigger player for man. Men need to make 30 times more testosterone than a woman.
Wow.
Otherwise, he loses his motivations, his youthfulness. And particularly because of environmental toxicity, high estrogen levels, they throw off a woman's hormonal balance, but they also lower a man's testosterone. And this is a key factor. So what men can do, what I found to be very helpful, is for men to take certain herbal supplements that have been known to help a body make testosterone. In addition, certain minerals that are often deficient in our diet can help the brain make more dopamine and more serotonin. And particularly these minerals for serotonin are so important. Otherwise, we're not getting the minerals in our food. When women are stressed, without the minerals, they can't make the serotonin in the brain to help them stay calm. When women are stressed and their cortisol levels are elevated, there's eight times more blood flow to the emotional part of the brain in a woman than a man. And she uses up her serotonin to calm that part of the brain. And by the end of the day, if she's been under stress, she runs out of the important minerals necessary to make serotonin.
And as we grow older, John Gray, then is it the inability of the body to reproduce this at a natural level we need? That's why we need the supplements?
Well, clearly, as the body gets older, the adrenal gland, which makes the precursors for testosterone, for progesterone, for estrogen, the adrenal gland becomes exhausted over time. And that's the problem. As we age, the adrenal gland gets exhausted over time. That's one of the problems. The second problem is as we get older, there's more toxicity that stays in our body. The liver is supposed to get rid of the toxicity, but the liver starts becoming more and more toxic, and it loses its ability to kick the extra estrogen out of the body.
Well, John,
although women's estrogen levels get lower as they get older,
yes,
they actually have too much estrogen compared to the progesterone in their body.
All right.
So it has to be a balance of estrogen and progesterone. And we can help our body to naturally restore that balance. For many women, just simply taking an herb called chasteberry extract will produce that balance at any age, because young women even have this imbalance due to all of the soy and environmental toxicity.
John, we have to take a break. We'll come back and talk about more of those natural ways to balance the system here on Positively Incorrect with your host, Scott Cluthe. Don't forget the website, marsvenus.com. Find out a lot more with Dr. John Gray today. Scott Cluthe, Positively Incorrect TV. Welcome back. And my guest today, Dr. John Gray. We were just showing you some video of John from one of your presentations, John, where you walk in, the guy sits on the chair, and the wife upstairs gets her antenna going. Tell us a little about that, because I know how that feels. Like, Seriously, you want me to do what, Faye? Yeah.
Well, that's when I first learned about the cave when I got married. I noticed I'd want to sit down and pick up a magazine and start reading it. But I really
Right.
wasn't that interested in the magazine. So I put the magazine down, and within a few moments, little antennas went up in my wife, and she goes, "Inactive man will help." And so she started wanting me to help her do stuff. And I needed my time for myself. So I quickly put the magazine back up and realized this tendency that men have, women don't have that tendency. They don't know how to interpret it. They often misinterpret it, thinking things like, he doesn't love me.
Right.
He doesn't care about me. He expects me just to do everything for him. He's not willing to help out. And none of that will be necessarily true. He's just taking some time to rest. Then this other need that women have to cope with stress is to talk about things. If she doesn't understand that that's not as important for most men, then she wants him to talk about things. Now, remember, he goes to the cave to forget the problems of his life, and now she wants him to talk about the problems of his life.
Exactly.
So then he starts to push her away, and she misinterprets that as well.
Yeah, exactly. But the shoe's on the other foot, though, for men. And that's about even no matter how hard it is, a little quality pay attention time and actually turn the volume down on the game, right?
You know, it's not even that hard for men. It's just men do not realize how important that was. You know, if walking down the street paid you 10 cents, you wouldn't do it. But if somebody told you walking down the street would save the world, you'd be running down the street. Right. You can do it easily. You just have to be motivated. And when men don't understand women and women don't understand men, then we have this resistance rather than motivation and support.
Well, the new book, Women Are on Fire, Men Are on Ice, really focuses on the breakthrough biochemical understanding of what it takes to keep ourselves balanced, healthy, alive, and vibrant. And when we come back in our next segment, I want to talk about those key elements a little. But this is also about the sugar balance. That's really critical. But it does also improve the sex life, doesn't it?
Yes.
Well, how does getting your hormones balanced help your sex life in 10 seconds?
It raises the hormones responsible for sexual response in a woman and for desire in a man. Without those two things, sex starts going by the side.
Well, now you got my attention, so we'll come back and talk with more. Dr. John Gray today, Venus on Fire, Men on Ice, Mars is on Ice, here on Positively Incorrect TV with your host, Scott Cluthe. Don't forget our website, phonoscopemedia.com, and John's website, marsvenus.com. Be right back.